Alright, welcome back to another web development video where I show you how to make modern websites using HTML5, CSS3, and a little bit of JavaScript. In this video I'm going to show you how to relatively easily create a dark mode or a dark UI for a website. So I've set up this website, super basic, just one page. This would be an article or something like that, and I've also set up this little button. Then when you click it, it's going to be our toggle switch for the light or dark mode. And this could be anything. It could be an icon, could be a word, could be in a menu, it could be anywhere. But when we click it, it switches, and then our dark mode will apply. And then when we click it again, we'll remove all the dark mode styles, and then we'll have our regular website. So the first thing we've done is set up just a regular website. And you want to set up the styles if light mode is your default. So whatever your default is, whether it's dark or light, you want to set those as your default styles for your website. So let's take a look at what we got. So we have this masthead section here, and that's here. This includes our dark mode button. We have this main section, which is the images and the text, and then we have another section down here. It's a footer, basically mirrors and mimics what is at the top, so the user be able to scroll down and switch to dark mode if you want, or do it at the top of the page. One of the things that we are going to cover is how to choose colors. I think that's a really important part of creating a dark UI, is making sure that you still have accessible colors. I'm using this accessible-colors.com, and essentially you just put in whatever your text color is, whatever your size is, regular or bold weight, and then what the background color is, and whether you want to be AA compliant or AAA compliant. So either way, I think I'm using 333 as my dark color here, as the color of the text, and then the background is the EA. So this is plenty of contrast even for AAA, so definitely passes. But what it does is, you can notice that it takes a little bit of the brightness out of the back of the page, makes it a little bit easier to read, like reading on a piece of paper, as opposed to a bright white screen shouting at you. So I would encourage you to do that. That's a good combination. 333 for your text, and EA or F9, just something to bring in a little bit of gray into the background of your website, especially where your text is. It'll help the page not blare so much at the user, but just throwing white on the back of the page can sometimes really bother users, especially if you're reading at night, and maybe you don't have a very good dimmer on your phone, or if you're on a PC or something like that. Maybe your monitor doesn't do those things automatically. So anything you can do to sort of help readability of the text would be helpful to the user. You can see it's definitely legible. You can read it with no problems. The line spacing is a key as well. Line spacing is 1.7, so that has a lot to do with what font you're using. But also you want to make sure that when you start to see all the the dead spaces between the lines, when they start to become apparent that there are spaces between the lines, you've pushed it 1 or 2 pixels too far as far as the line height is concerned. And by the way, don't put pixels, just put 1.7, and then whatever your font size is, it'll be a ratio of that font size, as long as you don't put pixels at the end of your line height. So if this is 38, then the line height would be 1.7 as a ratio, even though the size of the font is bigger. So that's an easy way to sort of help things if you want to keep some consistency through your website. So this is where we're starting. And these are just, just some of the base styles that I've set up to get to this point. I'm using Railway as a font. You could use whatever you want to. I have a little bit of JavaScript here. It's not very much. Really just a toggle. When you click the dark button, it toggles a class of dark onto the body. And then when you click light, the light button, so that's the dark button, and then this is the light button. And then it removes the class when you click on the light button. So that's really, and then we do like a little hide show. So when you click the dark button, it hides all the dark buttons. That's why I did that and not this. So when you click here, it changes up here too. So it just sort of keeps everything in sync on the page. And then same thing when you when you click the light button, then it hides all the light buttons on the page and shows the dark buttons, getting you ready to toggle into dark mode. So that's really the only JavaScript that we need for this. We could do where we are sort of listening for what the person prefers. That could be a different video, and that would just show up in your CSS. So the way that I like to do this is I like to come to the body. Since we're adding a class to the body, then we need to do something with that class. So it's essentially like you're coming up here to the body, and then you're adding, a class of dark like that. So imagine this here is the body. You'd be adding the class of dark to it. So in Sass, whenever we have something like when we have something like this, then we need to use the ampersand, and that'll stand in for body. Now if what we had instead was something like this, or dark was inside of the body tag, then we would just bring dark underneath like this. It would be inside the body. It would be maybe a div or something like that that's called dark. But since it's actually on the body tag itself, we have to use the ampersand in front, and then that makes it look, that acts just like this. So body.dark. Okay, and so we need to come in and just change some styles. Now whenever you're thinking about a dark mode, you can find all kinds of palettes of colors online. There are some that are recommended by Material Design and stuff like that. For me, it's more like playing around a little bit with dark colors until you sort of find one that feels right for your type of content. You could even ask do 2 or 3 different kinds, and ask someone, do a little bit of user testing or something. Which of these is easier to read, which looks better, which feels more sophisticated, etc. So I'm just going to pull some colors out of the dark and mostly invert what we have. So you can't just do a color. So you have to say background, color, and let's just start with 333. So now that we have all of our toggles set up, when I click this, it should just flip the background color to a different color, and you can see that it does. So this is our 333. You can see it's the same color as the text. That's why the text is essentially gone. That may not be dark enough for you. Maybe you want to go even darker than that, to like a 222, which is quite a bit darker gray. And you can see that we're actually toggling that dark mode off, right? So this is the way that we're going to set it up. So body.dark, we're going to change the background color of the body of the document, and then we're also going to change the text color. And so the text color, we're going to come down here, and let's just use that same EA color. So when we switch, you can see that our text goes to this color here, which is the lighter color. That's the color that we had for our background originally in the light mode. And then the background color essentially flips to what our text color is. So we're doing mostly sort of an inversion here of our light mode colors. So if we refresh that, you can see how it looks on the whole website. So we haven't done our masthead or anything like that yet, but we're just getting a sense for, you know, are those colors going to be good together? You could come back and you could say, okay, my text color is EA and my background color is 222. You can see that the ratio is more than enough to pass a AAA. You could even go as far as 444 and still be okay with the background. And so you could come back and you could try that out. And I think it's cool that you can come back and sort of just play around with how things are going to look. So you can see that it's quite a bit lighter than what we had done here. So if we just click on that, so that's definitely medium dark mode. But this is a very easy to read and still accessible combination of colors, and that's all I wanted to show you there. So let's just go ahead and put it back to our 222. I think material design, I want to say they want to go with 121212, something like that, but which is super dark. And definitely this text is going to be accessible. You just don't want it to go any lighter than 444 really, or 4D. So this is going to show up as long as our background keeps getting darker, but at some point it stops. It sort of starts to hurt your eyes a little bit. This is not too bad. It's actually not as bad as I thought it would be when you see it on the full screen. I don't know what it would look like on a phone, but it doesn't look too bad on a full screen. You could even make this this color here, you could even go a little bit darker, and you see how it darkens up just a little bit. And when we come back, when we click there, it's just maybe not quite so much of a pop to the eyes, right? So that doesn't look too bad. We sort of lose our images if they get too dark. This bright one is not too bad, but this one here is starting to get lost a little bit because it's dark. So also images, another thing to think about. So let's just stick with our 222, and then we're going to stick with the EA, and essentially we're just flipping our light mode. So we have that back here. Let's just double check it. So we click on dark mode, everything seems fine. Click on light and you go back. Then you can see this is gray and it's still sort of blaring in your face. So let's go back and start dealing with the header and the footer areas, and those are called masthead and masthead footer, or I'm sorry, masthead and footer. So we're just going to copy this because this is what we need, and we're going to come up under dark. So you have to remember this is like body.dark, and the thing that we're going to do is that once we attach the dark to the body, now everything cascades down. So everything under dark is going to change, but these things are not under dark because we're going to take this away. So these are our original body styles. These are only our dark styles whenever the dark class is applied to body. So anything under this dark style is going to be applied only when this dark is on body. Otherwise, it's going to apply all of our general styles. So we come up under dark mode and we paste in our two classes we had, and we're just going to give them also a background color. Now we could do the same color as we had before. That's just going to make everything one color. If you want it to be banded still, then you can push this one color a little bit lighter, or you could push it to that color that we had seen before. So that allows everything to sort of pop on the page. And then when we come back and we see our dark mode, you can see that it gives us a nice hard band of color at the top. This is actually lighter, which lightens up the page just a little bit. And then we have the same band down here. And when we click on light, we come back, because see, we keep this sort of light or dark, light, dark motif, and wind up with the same thing. So dark, light, dark motif. If you wanted to completely switch it around though, you could do something like 444, and then that would really be an inverse of what you were doing in the website before. You can see that this anytime you put a dark next to a light, it's going to darken the dark area. So this actually feels darker, even though it's not any darker than it was before, but because it's next to this lighter band, it actually feels a little bit darker. So color theory, that's something to do with the way that our eyes work. And you can see again that it makes all the difference. Now this feels a little lighter as opposed to here. Let's see. Want to do it? As opposed to here, where it feels, this feels a little bit darker. So it wasn't switching for me for some reason. Okay, so let's just leave it on the darker setting. So we'll leave that like that, and we'll come back and we'll leave it on this darker setting where we have the darker band at the top, and then it's a little bit lighter on the inside, which hopefully will make it easier to stand things off from everything. And our text is what it is, so it's everything's taking on this EA. If you wanted to change this, then you could. You would just come up and you would say it's called logo, and then you could change that color to anything you wanted to, and it would bring it down just a little bit. Another way for you to do this is to use your color here anytime you want to make something lighter, and you can just do a transparency on it. So we have our color, and then we say 0.6 for the transparency, and you see it brings it down just a little bit because the opacity is being brought down on a dark background. Then it's automatically going to make this a little bit darker. So that may or may not be what you're trying to do. What that does is it helps to highlight this area and get you into the article a little bit, and sort of decreases the logo blaring at you. At this point, someone's reading your site in dark mode, they're probably reading, so it's sort of a lights out kind of thing. You can use that same idea here as well. So you could take this color and you could put that on your text, and then it would actually sort of give you a lights out or a super dim view on your text. So you can see the text is quite a bit more dim, or this would be like super dark mode, and maybe this is easier for people to read. You would just have to test that in the dark, because that's when a lot of people are going to be reading in dark mode, or maybe you want a dim mode, which was before, and then this would be a dark mode, a true, you're in the dark reading. This text is going to pop, even though it looks pretty dim right here because I'm sitting in the daylight. It looks pretty dim to me, but if you were sitting in a dark room in the middle of the night reading this, it'd probably be fine. So that's a way to create sort of a dim and a dark mode. Let's just take this off the logo because I want to leave everything basically at the same level, and maybe changing this size would help to distinguish between these two pieces of text. And let's see, the last thing I wanted to cover was the images. Now the images don't look too bad. But we're also in, I have sunlight directly behind me hitting the screen, so it just looks normal to me. But maybe this image is going to be a little bit too bright if I was sitting in a dark room looking at the image. And the whole point of this is to sort of bring the brightness down on the page. And we actually have a CSS filter that's called brightness, if you can believe it. And so we come down and we want to say to our images in dark mode, right? So we're bringing it under our dark mode. And we want our images to say filter. And we can use a couple of different things. We can use one called saturate. And saturate takes away, you can see it change there a little bit. You see how bright the blue is. And then we bring it down, you can really see that that blue has been desaturated. So it just sort of zaps some of the color out of the picture. That's one way to do it. And another filter that we can use. Let's just not use that one. Another filter that we can use is called brightness. And you'll be able to see this change. See how it went darker? Everything in the picture just got a little bit darker. Maybe 50% is a little bit too much. Maybe 70 is better. So it lightens up a little bit, but you can see this is quite a bit clearer and brighter. And then when you come here, this feels like it's a darker shade of every color, right? It looks like we put sort of an overlay over the top of it, but we haven't had to do anything. We just put this filter, CSS3 filter, right on our images, and it sort of zaps out the brightness of that color. And so when we come back, we can click on here. You can see it just feels a little bit more dim and matches everything a little bit more. This is black and white, so this feels a little brighter. You might be able to see it in the lights that it's a little more gray, even in a black and white photo. So that's one way that you can take care of the images as well. So every element on the page should be considered. And whenever you're choosing your colors, just make sure you're choosing colors that are accessible. When you're dealing with the images, don't make them so dark that you can't see what's in them. That defeats the purpose. And what's the last thing? The last thing that I thought about is maybe even line height. So, I'm sorry, I got two more things. So let's talk about line height. So in our dark mode, if we wanted to change our line height a little bit, let's say to 2, it might be pushing it a little bit too far, 2, but you can see that it changes the legibility, like how easy it is, the readability, not the legibility, but the readability of the text. It changes it just a little bit because all of that white starts to chunk together and makes it a little bit more difficult to read. So maybe we need to go to 1.8 or 9, something like that, where it still feels together, but it just gives us a little bit more space. It gives us just a little bit more space, and we'll see it here. You can't see it because it's changing so quickly, but it feels to me like it's a little bit easier to read that white. That white starts to bleed together if you get that text too close. But you can see it move just a little bit. But with the black on the light background, it doesn't seem to bother it as much if the lines are a little bit closer together. But with the dark mode, it just feels like maybe we need a little bit more space. Okay, so now for super cool time. Because you're making a transition from these values to these values, we can actually use CSS transitions to create a nice transition effect from the light to the dark mode and back again. And the way that we do that is we come up here onto the element that's changing. So remember, we're adding dark mode to the body, and it's the body that's changing all the colors. And so when we come in here, we say transition, And then we need to decide what we want to transition. So we're going to transition the background color, and we're going to transition the color and the line height, all of these things. So we'll start with background color, and then we could do something like 300 milliseconds, so that's 0.3 seconds. And then ease is a sort of a short term for ease in, ease out. So it starts easy, builds up speed, and then slows down easy. And then we can actually chain these transitions together. So that if we just copy this, actually let's just copy this part. That's what we need. And the next one is going to be color, and then we can put that in there, and then we can chain one more, which is our line height. And now all of these things are going to be, the body's going to listen for any changes on these properties. And when the values change for these properties, it's going to apply a transition, an animation essentially. It'll take 300 milliseconds, and then we'll do the ease in, ease out. So it'll be sort of a soft beginning, soft end. So let's see how that works and how it looks in real life. And you can play around with the values of how fast or how slow. You can do sort of like a dimming of the lights in a movie theater if you make it a little bit slower. You can see that everything just gives a nice little sort of transition effect from one to the other. Now this is actually moving up and down because we also are transitioning our line height, which you can see here. So you couldn't see the transition very well, but you can see it just a little bit there. You can see how the text is moving just ever so slightly, but that will change some of the effect. And the issue is that it's only changing, or it's changing the line height for everything. And really we only want to change the line height for our main class. So we could come into main, and we can change the line height there. Might need to say main P. Let's do that. We'll change the line height, and that way the line height's not changing for everything, because it was changing up here as well. But we can see, so it's changing the line height of the text down here, and it's just transitioning that ever so slightly. In fact, let's see. I need to I'm not sure if we'll need to do this or not. Let's try that out and see if that's a better transition effect. It felt a little choppy to me. So let's see if that's a little better. Yeah, I'd say that's a little smoother because what's happening again is this main P is the thing that's changing. So it's going from this default to this. So we just needed to add a little bit of transition to the parent, the P tag, which is the parent of the transition. So you get a little bit smoother transition. It's still a little bit janky, but I probably wouldn't transition in the line height, but it's something that you can do. So to me, I would take that off, and then I would just transition the major parts, because it's sort of like a magician. You're just trying to give the illusion of something. You're giving the illusion of a transition, right? So it doesn't have to be totally exact all the way. You can transition, these two elements at different speeds. You can do them, like I said, if you push this to 800 milliseconds, so almost a minute, then you'll see that it's more like a movie effect, where everything just kind of dims down and comes back up. So it's something you can play around with a little bit, just to see how things change and the way that they happen. And I would even take this and put it here maybe. And see if that creates even a smoother transition between the two. Yeah. So that transitions most things as they need to be transitioned at the same time. Here's the background color. So it's a little artistry where you can play around with stuff. Maybe the color is not the best thing to transition. Maybe only the background colors are the best to transition together. And so it sort of dims everything down, brings it back up, and then you have, voila, your own, you have your own dark mode. And like I said, you can just use this on any toggle that you want to. It could be in a menu, it could be in just an icon somewhere. I'm using an icon. This is just a button, HTML button. And then I'm going to take it one step farther, and I'm going to remember the user's choice. So this is one step farther. If you're not comfortable with JavaScript, you can probably stop here, or you can just keep going. So what we're going to do is we're going to use local storage. And when I made the Skimmer News app, this was how I was storing a lot of the user settings. If you don't know very much about local storage, you should probably go check that out first before you decide to move on, because there's some terminology that you won't know. But if you're comfortable with local storage, or you just generally know about it, then this is how you would go about doing it. So when I click on Dart button, I want to save that setting. So I'm going to say set item, and I'm going to say Dart mode. And what I'm going to say is, let me think about this. Let me think about this. Alright, this isn't what I was planning to do, so let's create a variable, and it's going to be called Dart mode, and it's going to be equal initially to the word light, okay, because that's going to be our default Dart mode. So we're going to do a check in the local storage whenever the browser refreshes. So this is on page load. So if local storage dot get item dark mode so if it exists, then we're going to come in and we're going to do something else. If it doesn't exist, then we're going to do something else. Okay. So if you look in the local storage and you do a get item, so it looks into the local storage, and if there's something in there called dark mode, then we're going to set our variable dark mode to whatever that is. So our default is going to be light, but we're going to say dark mode is going to be equal to this same string, or this same method, sorry. So local storage get item dark mode, and that's going to be our new value for dark mode. Okay, our new value for dark mode. And if we look in there and there's no value for dark mode, then we're going to set dark. Actually, we don't even need to do anything else. We can get rid of that else statement. So if it's in there already, we're going to look and we're going to see what was the last thing that the user in that browser clicked, because that's what we're going to set. Each time that they click, we're going to set this this item dark mode to whatever the value is. If it's set, then we're going to set the dark mode value to whatever that value is, whether it's light or dark. When the person clicks on the button, then we're going to do a local storage set item, and we're going to say dark mode, and we want that to equal dark. And then we come down here, and if they click on light mode, we want it to equal light. So when we hit the page, dark mode is going to equal light. This should be our else, I guess. This is the way I write JavaScript, by the way. So if you want to get some insight onto my programming skills, this is how it works. So we're going to set a dark mode variable when the page loads. It's empty. If there is something in the local storage called get dark mode, if we get that, then we're going to set dark mode to whatever that value is that's in local storage. It's either going to be dark or light, depending on what the person set they clicked the last time that they're on the page. If there is no such thing on there as dark mode, then we're going to set dark mode to light. That's going to be our variable, and then we're going to we might as well just set the local storage. Let's just copy this. We might as well just set the local storage to our dark mode setting, which we just set for light, right? Let's go ahead and move this out. So this sets our dark mode on load, I guess. It sets our dark mode on load. Alright, so let's check out this mess that I just created with JavaScript. So I'm in Google Chrome, and in our tools you can come down to application and click on local storage, and this is the storage that we're using. You could also use session storage, but once the user closes the tab, then all that storage goes away. Local storage is persistent. We can clear all this, and whenever we come back, we have dark mode. Okay, so our initial value is going to be light because that's what we set. We set that here, right? If it doesn't exist, which it didn't before I refreshed the page, then it skips this and it goes to here and sets the dark mode to light. Let's do that. And then it goes down to local storage and it sets our dark mode as either light or whatever was in the storage. Okay, it's just a fallback just in case. So when we click on a button, if we click on the dark button, it should change our dark mode to dark, and it should change our light mode to light. So that's the expectation whenever we click on these buttons. So this value here should change to dark. Okay, so it changes here to dark, and that lets me know the last thing that the user clicked on was dark mode, and then when I click light, after this happens, everything goes back, and then our dark mode value is set back to light. So whenever we come in, we say so let's think about this for a second. So if local storage is dot get item. So same thing up here. If the get item dark mode is equal to dark, then we're going to go and do something. We're going to do exactly what we did if we clicked on the dark mode button. We're just going to add a class to our body that's called dark. That should be all that we need. So when we refresh, it won't do anything because we're in light, right? That was the last thing we clicked. And now we click on dark and it's here, and let's see on page refresh. Alright, so it stays with our dark mode because the last thing the user clicked was dark mode, and we're remembering that in our local storage. So it doesn't matter, you can close this tab. You can open it again. You can open it next week, and as long as your settings haven't been reset inside of your browser, as long as you haven't cleared that local storage out like I did just a minute ago, which you'd have to do by hand or programmatically, as long as that hasn't happened, then every time the user comes back, it'll remember the dark mode because that's the last mode that they had. If you click on we're getting some weirdness here. Okay. This happens too. So when you come in and you click on light, then that doesn't do anything good for us. So let's click here. Maybe we need an else. Let's do else if local storage dot get item light dark mode equals light. And then we'll remove that class. So let's see if that helps us out. No. What's going on? Because we're not creating a new refresh. So let's think through this. So we're setting our dark and light mode here. Maybe this needs to be up. Okay. So we're in debugging mode. Okay, so our initial value is light. We click on dark, goes to dark, light, dark, light. So this works fine whenever you first hit the page. But when you refresh, okay, it does fine. But when it's in dark mode and you refresh, this is in dark mode. Oh, I know what it is. Okay. So when we refresh the page and it's in dark mode, we have our dark button. That's not what we want. We need to make sure that the button that's here is the light button. So whenever we come in and we say if the local storage dark mode is dark, then set the body to dark, and we also need to take this dark button. We essentially need to, it's like clicking this dark button, so we essentially need all of those things to happen again. So we need the body to have dark, we need the dark button to hide, and we need the light button to show. So that's only if when it looks in local storage that it sees the dark mode. Okay. Well, we can move these things down again. I'd like for that to happen last, if possible. So let's do that. And we'll save and we'll try it one more time. It's always good to remember the things. Okay, so now we're in dark mode, but it's showing our light button. That was the issue. So when we click on light, it should go to our light. When we click on dark, it should go to dark. When we refresh again, again our light mode is showing, and it happens on both sides, the top and bottom. So that's how you can have a persistent dark mode, just with a simple toggle and toggling the classes. So not only how to think about dark mode as a design concept, but also how to actually implement it using local storage in the browser. Now, if you're using the local storage, you would have to programmatically have a way for someone to erase or clear out which mode, or if the user went into their application tools of the browser, cleared all of their browser cookies and data and all that kind of stuff, it would erase the memory of what they had clicked before. But that's really the only time. If they click out of the browser, if they come back 10 days later or 2 years later, then as long as you're checking for that mode and then serving up the appropriate light mode or dark mode, it should still work as long as you're using the same browser on the same computer, or the same device or whatever it is. So that's just something to remember, and maybe something that you can implement actually relatively easy on a website. It's not quite as easy as just using invert. I don't like that because it changes a lot of other things, but it doesn't take very much to go through and just change the background, change the text on the different elements that you have. If you have any questions or comments, just leave them down in the comment section below. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, click subscribe and then click the bell, and you'll receive notifications both on YouTube and in your email whenever I upload new videos. I usually try to do 1 or 2 a week. I don't do one every single day normally. And if you like this, all you have to do is click the thumbs up. That's a big help for getting the video discovered and showing people, especially YouTube, that it's a valuable piece of content. If it was really valuable to you, or you think that someone else could benefit from this, then please share it in social media, or share it, through an email or something. And I think that's it for now. If you want to check out the rest of my channel, I've got lots of videos, a couple hundred videos, from a variety of things in web development and web design, including some recent things that I'm doing with the CSS subgrid, which is a specification of CSS grid. So that's a new playlist I've been building out over the last week, and so it might be something of interest to you as well. All right, thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time.